Even after securing a job, many of us find ourselves constantly learning new skills or picking up new skills as we need them, but also staying up to date with trends. So, how do we do this and continuously learn without burning out? Well, let's talk about it. Hey, and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are having an awesome day. And if this is your first time seeing me, hey, I'm Bree, and I'm super happy to have you here. So, as a software engineer, continuous learning and continuous education are really just part of the territory. So today, let's discuss how you can determine what to learn next and how you can integrate continuous learning into your schedule without burning out. As usual, if you are looking for something in particular, the timestamps are always in the description below. So first, let's talk a little bit about what to learn next. Once you know your first programming language, I definitely think it gets a lot easier to learn any other programming languages that you want to in the future, as long as you have a good, solid understanding and a good foundation of programming basics. So really, after you learn your first programming language, the world is your oyster. So how do you determine what skill you want to pick up next? So the first way you can do this is by letting your interests guide you. This is something that I always start out with because I always find it to be the most fun and engaging. Let your curiosity guide you. Is there a question that you currently have and you could possibly solve it with technology? Or is there something in your life that could be automated or made easier with technology? This is always a fun route to go because you're solving a problem that you actually have. So for example, a year ago, I created a tool to help me automate some things that I was doing with Instagram. There are lots of tools out there, but I wanted something that was custom for my needs, so I created it. I was basically using the same skills that I use on a daily basis, but it really helped me strengthen some of my JavaScript skills. So, did I technically pick up a new language? Not exactly, but I did strengthen a skill that I already had. Or, another example that I always like to use, if you are like me, you absolutely hate having to decide what to eat every single week. I don't know why that is the hardest thing that I've come across as an adult, but it is. So even doing something like figuring out how to create a database of all of the recipes that you enjoy, and then maybe coming up with a UI to help you to randomly generate some of those menus throughout the weeks, that could be a really awesome way for you to take a journey through full stack web development because there are so many different pieces that you could integrate. So the second way that you could sort of figure out what you want to learn next is by picking a skill that's going to help you in your everyday job. So this one is one of my recent personal favorites because I always like to see growth in the work that I'm doing. So I started this by taking an inventory of all of the skills, the languages, technologies that I was using, and determining where I was strong and where I was weak. And of that list, I was able to pick parts that I could be stronger with. Or if there is a piece of technology that your company or maybe an adjacent team is using that would help you understand the work that you're doing and the work that another team is doing even more, try that too. So TypeScript is a very, very large part of my job, and prior to the position that I'm in now, I used it in fairly basic ways. So I had a lot of room to grow when I started working with TypeScript in the position that I am now. So when I started this method of determining what I wanted to learn next and figuring out that TypeScript was definitely something that was on my list, I started with taking a course and really diving into the documentation. But after you've done that, how can you improve on this skill still? Well, a lot of it is reading blog posts or taking a little bit of a deeper dive into the components that we're creating, and determining if I fully understand the code that's there or if there are little bits that I could still brush up on. I personally find that this method is really great because you never know what little tidbit of information might really click for you and sort of make you have an aha moment. Because I've definitely had a lot of moments where I see something and somebody explains it just the right way for me to understand, and now all of a sudden so many things make sense. I also really love this method of picking something that's going to make you better at work because it really shows initiative as well. So the third thing you could do to figure out what you want to sort of learn or dive into next is picking something that's trendy. If you love trendy things and you love new things, this is definitely an awesome industry to be in. There's always a new framework or library that's being released. There's tons of them, so you really have your pick of what's new. So you could become an early adopter of a framework or a language and really help it take shape, or you could become an early expert and start teaching others by writing blog posts or creating videos. You can become an early expert and then you'll become very valuable to companies who want to implement that technology, mainly because there's not a lot of people who are experts with the new or trendy frameworks or libraries or technologies yet. So a lot of times you might be able to consult for companies that need those skills and really charge almost whatever you want to, because there's not a lot of people out there yet who have the skills. So after you sort of determine what you want to learn, how do you integrate this continuous learning into your life without burning out? So the first thing I think you should do is be real and flexible with the amount of time that you have to study. So in comparison to the amount of hours that we spend either studying for interviews or studying so that we can get our foot in the door of the tech industry, I don't believe that we have to be that rigorous because I know it can be a lot when you're first trying to get your foot in the door. I definitely don't push myself at that same pace, but I do like to make sure that I am actively setting time in my schedule for studying specifically. Working and developing and then having to study for 8+ hours a day, 5 days a week, adding hours and hours of time coding on your own or studying outside of that, that is a very, very quick way to burn out. And it's really not for everyone. If you can, just set a goal for yourself, something that's reasonable, something that fits into your life, and then try to stick to it. For me, that's about 4 to 5 hours per week. And make sure that you're flexible and forgiving of yourself when life happens. The second thing you can do, if your skill is going to make you better at work, try integrating it into your work schedule. So I'm not talking spending 4 hours a day or 5 hours a day trying to pick up a new skill because that's going to take away from regular work. But this is something that I put into practice where every Friday for 1 hour or whatever the last day of the week is, I spend 1 hour learning a new skill or like brushing up on a skill that's going to make me better at my job. So I picked Fridays because they are typically pretty quiet for me. There's not really a lot of meetings going on, and I schedule it closer to the end of the day, about 4 o'clock. That way it's one of the last things that I do, and it's like a nice focus time, and it's a really, really great way for me to wind down my week. The next thing you could do to integrate learning into your schedule is to consider teaching others. Teaching is a really great way to learn, and I added it to the list because it sometimes breaks up the monotony of sitting behind a computer and doing a tutorial or working on a project. Explaining topics to others is a great way to both reaffirm the knowledge that you do have and also expose places where you could be a little bit stronger. You don't need to be an expert to teach anybody something. It could be as simple as showing somebody a different way to complete a task. Like I said earlier, continuous learning is something that is sort of a part of the territory of being a software engineer, but I completely get that it can be really daunting to have to work 8+ hours a day and then figure out how you're going to add learning into your schedule. So I always recommend doing it in little doses and try to make it fun. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I really like talking about some ways that I like to integrate learning into my schedule. And if you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure that you turn on notifications so that you can be notified every time I post a video. And with that, I can't wait to see you all in my next video.